The toxic leader. What do you think the percentage of toxic leaders are in the Army? I was looking at a survey this week of 22,000 soldiers. That's a lot of soldiers. And 1 in 5 said they worked for a toxic leader. 20% said their leader was toxic. 1 in 5. There's another survey that I looked at that said 80%, 4 in 5 officers and NCOs might not have said they worked for a toxic leader, but they saw one. They came in direct contact with one in the last year. So both of those seem like it's an incredibly high number. Toxic leaders in the Army, and if you want to see a grown man cry, have them work under a toxic leader. You might be the strongest, smartest, most high-speed, high-resilient soldier out there, but if you are working for a toxic leader, it will crush you. And you see a couple of different reactions to it. Some folks just pack it in and say, forget it, it is not worth it. And they leave the Army. Good soldiers, good leaders are leaving the Army because of an experience of working under a toxic leader. But perhaps maybe even if there's anything you can imagine worse than that, what would be worse than that is the sergeant or the young lieutenant or captain who sees it and emulates it and says, well, this is what leadership is. I see it working. This guy got promoted. He's leading this place. I guess that's how we lead in the Army. And then they become toxic leaders themselves. The purpose of this video, it's going to be one of a two-part series. Today, I want to look at what a toxic leader is and why they might be so prevalent in the military, in the Army. And then next week are survival skills, coping mechanisms, call it what you want. What do you do if you're working or serving under a toxic leader? But first and foremost, did you know that the Army changed the word and no longer uses toxic leader in an official capacity? It's now called, according to ADP 6-22, Army Leadership and the Profession. Great guide, great regulation, counterproductive leadership. It is now called counterproductive leadership, according as of July 2019. And so, the artist formerly known as toxic leader, now counterproductive leader. What is a counterproductive leader? Well, according to the regulation, it says leader behavior that violates, more than one core leader competency or Army value. Which, what is that? The bottom line for me is this. Call it what you want. Toxic leadership, counterproductive leadership is easier felt than seen. It's like you know it when you see it. Because here's the bottom line is that toxic, counterproductive leaders, they know how to put their best foot forward. And they sometimes can produce positive short-term results. They know how to kiss up and kick down. They know how to set themselves up so from 100 yards it looks good, so the brigade or the division commander will look at them and say, wow, results. Hey, they're getting the job done. Great leader here. Meanwhile, there's a trail of dead bodies, behind them who have suffered and suffered greatly. So I think that counterproductive leadership is easy to feel, but sometimes hard to see. Again, they know how to kiss up but kick down. They know how to look good from 25 yards. They sometimes produce short-term results, but they always produce long-term suffering. And ADP 6-22 associates certain words with counterproductive leadership, and perhaps maybe these are words or things that you are dealing with now. The Army uses the word suspicion, doubt, distrust, low morale, decreased task performance. As a matter of fact, the subject matter expert in the Army of toxic leadership is a retired colonel named George Reed, and he concluded that there's a 48% decrease in work effort under a toxic leader. Half. And then he said a 38% decrease in work quality under a toxic leader. The Army uses the term decreased physical well-being, decreased psychological well-being, increased depression, and increased burnout, all associated with toxic leadership. The Army associates 5 leader behaviors with toxic leader. So you want to look at the behaviors of your leader and what are they doing? And the Army says here, there are 5 things that we commonly see under toxic or counterproductive leadership. Number 1, the Army says, are abusive behaviors. And that we can call the screamer. The one who bullies, berates, ridicules, or domineers. The second leadership behavior the Army calls out, and this is from ADP 6-22, paragraph 849, is self-serving behaviors. The schemer, I call it. The one who will take credit for something that they didn't do, or distort information to kind of validate their effort or their opinion, or exaggerate their accomplishments. So there's the shady character, if you will. So you got the screamer, the schemer. Number 3, the Army says, are erratic behaviors, and I call this the psycho leader. And this is the one who kind of loses their temper at a moment's notice for nothing that big, who's paranoid or insecure or inconsistent in their words and their actions. The 4th behavior the Army talks about is leadership incompetence. And I call this the submerged, the person who's just over their heads and just swamped and submerged in leadership incompetence. And the Army has a long list of behaviors associated with that. They're passive, reactionary, neglecting. And then the 5th one are a leader who exhibits corrupt behaviors. And I call this, forgive me, Mom, the scumbag. This is just the one with no ethical compass at all. This is the one who's dishonest, stealing, sharp issues. And so these are 5 leadership behaviors. Abusive behaviors, the screamer. Self-serving behaviors, the schemer. Erratic behaviors, the psycho. Leadership incompetence, the submerged. And corrupt behaviors, the scumbag. So why are these leaders, why does the Army tend to have a high percentage of these leaders in the Army? Again, 20% in one survey said they served for one. That's 1 in 5. And 80% said they saw one somewhere in their sphere of influence. So let me just kind of put out from my foxhole why the Army sees a greater prevalence of toxic leaders. Number 1, I think, is pride. Folks want to be proud of their unit. They want to be proud of 339, the 6th Infantry Brigade. So they're not going to say anything. They're going to turn the other cheek because they want to be part of a good unit. Everybody's proud of their unit. As a matter of fact, I can moan and groan about my unit. But if you start saying bad things about my unit, then the fight's on. So there's Army pride. Second is the Army value of loyalty. Which is it's inbred into us that we want to be loyal. And this follows with another Army value, that of respect. We respect the rank. We respect our leaders, maybe to the point of tolerating behavior that we shouldn't. So there's pride, there's loyalty, there's respect. There's the old Army adage, embrace the suck. Nobody likes a whiner. Suck it up. Don't be a baby. You're just moaning and groaning, and do what you need to do. And then the other, another reason is because, and I've heard this said countless times, well, I'm just going to wait him or her out until they PCS, or I'm going to wait until I PCS. So yeah, life might suck now, but I'm getting orders, in a couple of months, and I can survive this. So nobody's going to say anything because I'm just going to ride out the storm. And then another reason is because people will say, hey, you know what? The only opinion that matters is that of my raider and my senior raider. So what you, my peer, or what you, my subordinate, might say about me, I don't care. I look good to the senior raider. I'm getting that top lock because I'm producing the most numbers. That's what matters. And it goes back to what I said a little earlier. Sometimes toxic leaders, counterproductive leaders can produce short-term results, but they always produce long-term suffering. Toxic leaders can look good from 100 yards, but, from 5 yards, it's torture. And so there are a lot of reasons why. The Army really needs to look out. And if you are serving under a toxic leader now in any capacity, God bless you. It is a hard road to hoe. Next week, I want to look at some survival skills, some coping mechanisms, maybe to help you get through this, and some things that we can do to safeguard the Army from cultivating toxic leaders. We want toxic leaders out of the Army. We don't want them in front of our troops. So, hey, hang on till next week where we talk about coping mechanisms. Until then, walk in peace and have the best day possible.